So, ever wondered what's keeping your state tax refund? You know the drill, you file your taxes, you do all that math, and then you just wait. It's incredibly frustrating, right? You're staring at your bank account, kind of wondering if your money took a detour somewhere along the way. Well, the good news is, in just a few simple steps, you can find out the exact status of your refund here in Massachusetts. And I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're taking the official guidelines from the Massachusetts Department of Revenue, along with some expert tax resources, and turning them into a really clear roadmap to help you track down your money. Okay, let's dive right into this. Here is the exact roadmap we'll follow today. We'll start with the basics and required info, then move into step-by-step online tracking, and touch on a few alternative tracking methods. After that, we'll look at why it might be delayed, how to resolve missing refund issues, and finally, we'll wrap up with some really practical tips. All right, Section 1, the basics and required info. Basically, a state tax refund is just Massachusetts returning your overpaid income taxes. I mean, it's money that literally belongs back in your wallet. But what do you actually need to check your status in the state's system? You might want to pause for a second and go grab your paperwork. Since tracking your state return is totally separate from tracking your federal IRS return, having the right details up front is really the only way to get into these databases. You can't just type in your name and hope for the best. Security is super tight, and the system needs specific verification parameters that perfectly match the records on your filed return. So aside from knowing your basic filing status, there are 3 mandatory pieces of information you absolutely must have in hand. First step, your Social Security number, or your individual taxpayer identification number if you use an ITN. Second, you need the target tax year of the return you're looking into. And third, the exact expected refund amount. Now, if you've misplaced your physical paperwork, don't panic. Just log into whatever tax software you use to file, like OLT or TurboTax, and check the summary page of your state return. Now, pay really close attention to that last point, the exact whole dollar amount. Honestly, this is where a lot of people trip up. The state database requires absolute precision here. Let's say your expected refund is $500.50. Well, if you enter a rounded number, like just $500 even, the system will straight up reject your inquiry. It's got to match exactly. You have to enter the precise whole dollar amount exactly as it appears on your official tax form. Moving right along to Section 2, step-by-step online tracking. To get real-time updates, we're going to use MassTax Connect. That's the state's primary web platform. Here is the exact click path you need to follow. First, just navigate to the MassTax Connect homepage. Then, scroll down to the section labeled Individuals. Right under that heading, you'll see and click the Where's My Refund link. And you know what's really fantastic about this portal? It's completely public. That means you don't have to deal with the hassle of creating a secure login account or, remembering yet another new password just to do a quick status check. Once you punch in your details, the tracker is going to display your progress across 3 distinct stages: return received, refund approved, and finally, the one we all want to see, refund sent. Now, here's a little pro tip for your peace of mind. The central database actually updates on a nightly basis. So sitting at your computer and hitting refresh multiple times a day, that won't yield any new information. Just check it once a day, preferably in the morning, to see if your status has moved on to the next stage. Okay, on to Section 3, alternative tracking methods. So what if you're not a fan of using the internet? Or maybe you're checking on a very specific type of refund? Well, there is one major exception in the Massachusetts tax system you should know about. Standard personal income tax refunds are perfectly trackable online via MassTax Connect, like we just talked about. However, Massachusetts has this law called Chapter 62F. Basically, when state tax collections exceed a certain cap, the excess revenue has to be returned to taxpayers as a surplus refund. Like, eligible taxpayers actually got a 14% return from the 2021 tax year, which is huge. But crucially, these specific surplus refunds cannot be tracked online. No way. To check on a Chapter 62F refund, you have to call a dedicated call center at 877-677-9727. Let's keep building on this and move to Section 4. Why is it delayed? First, we really need to distinguish between standard administrative wait times and actual problematic delays. So let's look at some baseline expectations. If you e-filed your return and opted for direct deposit, you're generally looking at a standard processing time of about 4 to 6 weeks. However, if you filed a paper return through the mail or if you requested a physical check, you're bumping that wait time way up to 8 to 10 weeks, or honestly, even longer depending on mail volume. But what happens if that time has fully passed, or maybe your refund amount suddenly shows up way smaller than you expected? Well, you need to understand this concept called a refund intercept. Basically, this is a legal process where the Department of Revenue either reduces or completely withholds your state tax refund to satisfy outstanding debts. Think of things like unpaid child support, defaulted student loans, or even prior state or federal taxes. If you owe those, your final direct deposit might be legally intercepted and redirected to pay those debts. Now, aside from intercepts, what else causes delays? Well, simple math errors or incomplete forms will stop the automated system dead in its tracks. Also, sometimes a return is just randomly flagged for a manual fraud review to help protect your identity. And a super common real-life scenario, a simple typo in your bank routing information. Seriously, just one wrong digit means the state literally cannot send the digital funds to your account. So, if you're experiencing a delay, my best advice is don't try to guess what the issue is. Just wait for an official letter in the mail or log into a secure MassTax Connect account to check for official notices that will outline exactly what the state needs from you to fix the holdup. Which brings us to Section 5, Resolving Missing Refund Issues. Let's say you've waited the full time and the system says a check was issued, but it never arrived in your mail or at your bank. Here are the exact steps you should take. First, just make absolutely sure the full processing time of up to 10 weeks has actually passed. Second, triple check that the bank details you submitted were correct. If both of those check out, then you need to initiate Step 3, request an official refund trace. This is a formal procedure where the government steps in to track the missing check or deposit. And the good news is, if an uncashed check is less than a year old, the government can simply cancel the old one and issue a brand new check to you within about 4 weeks. So the crucial point here is you're not alone in this, and you absolutely have backup. If the standard automated tools and normal channels fail you, you can escalate your unresolved issues. First, you can call the DOR contact center directly. But if that fails, Massachusetts actually has a Problem Resolution Office, or PRO, which is designed specifically to help taxpayers who just can't get answers through normal avenues. And if there are major systemic issues, or you feel your rights as a taxpayer are being compromised, you can contact the Office of the Taxpayer Advocate. You literally have dedicated professionals ready to step in and enforce your rights. All right, let's head into our final stretch. Section 6, Practical Tips and Wrap-Up. To keep things running smoothly and make sure your filing next year goes off without a single hitch, you really should make these 3 rules your tax season mantra. First, always e-file and use direct deposit. Seriously, it cuts your wait time in half compared to paper. Second, always double-check your exact whole dollar refund amount before you even try to track it online. And third, if you move, please remember to submit Form 8822. Countless undelivered paper checks get returned to the state simply because someone moved to a new apartment and forgot to update their mailing address with the USPS and the Department of Revenue. Keeping that data current is absolutely essential. Now, I really want to reassure you that managing your refund status using these state tools is a highly streamlined process. It's built to be easy. However, we do need to toss up a quick professional disclaimer here. While this explainer serves as a great everlasting guide to the general framework of Massachusetts tax tracking, things like individual tax laws, those statutory surplus thresholds we talked about, and administrative procedures can absolutely shift from year to year. So always consult with a certified tax professional or check out the official Department of Revenue resources if you have major concerns or just need the latest legislative updates. Which brings us to our final thought for today. The money you overpaid to the state belongs in your pocket, not sitting in some bureaucratic holding pattern. Think about it. If your state tax refund is meant to be yours, isn't it worth taking just 5 minutes today to log on to MassTax Connect and claim the peace of mind you deserve? Seriously, don't leave yourself guessing. Grab your tax return, find that exact whole dollar amount, and go track your status right now. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and happy tracking!